Hi there, Matt from Foul Ball Productions. Thank you so much for joining me today. This time we're actually on the internet when I say that, so that's great stuff. That's great stuff.
Foul ball had a false start. You know, it happens.
Yes, I did. I was like, oh, I didn't know I had a fancy countdown like everyone else, so I just pressed it and then launched into the show, and then they're like, hey, are we live? I was like, we're not live? I was like, no, we're not live. Oh, I can do it all over.
You don't even have to include the countdown on the front of your show. You can just go live in 3, 2.
That's what I always do. That I never do the countdown because I'm a gunslinger, man. I'm a wild man. But this is my ongoing coverage of every single episode of The Expanse. This is episode 6 of season 5, Tribes. And as I quipped earlier, I brought some of my tribe with me. Got Jake D and Drago Argentis to chat about the new episode. We're into the second half of this season now. Oh, crap. I'm lagging. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous.
That makes for a great effect visually, though, man. I'll tell you what.
At least you're not pixelated, Matt. Then we have to screen cap you and meme you to hell.
I did screen cap that. I've got it.
God damn it. All right. Well, I'm just going to hope that comes back. You guys can, I guess, start off with tell me what you thought.
Yeah. Well, so I'll start off with a rating on this one, and I'll give it a good solid 9 to 10 again, same as episode 5. Tribes comes from what we saw happening kind of really all over the episode and all over the solar system. We had it specifically mentioned by Amos in a really great scene. His interactions with Clarissa in this episode were phenomenal. I absolutely loved them. And the way that he closed out the episode was absolutely great. But you didn't see it just there in the way that Amos was talking about it, but in each scene that we got, you saw that happening with the Inaros faction and the Belters. And so it was a theme really that was throughout the episode, which was very, very cool. We got to see a good picture of what's going to be happening with the UN government and everything going on with the crew once again. And I just overall very impressed with the episode. Solid 9 out of 10.
And how deep are we going to go with this as far as spoilers? Are we going to keep that to later or not talk about spoilers?
If you can hear me, spoil away.
Okay. I am also on the... Oh, hell. Well, I am also high on... I'm also high on the scale for this particular episode. A 9 would not be another unfair score to give it. It is solid. The drama is good, and
but idea okay.
We're not getting into too much. What? Lost
no,
YouTube?
You cut out there for a second.
Oh, I might.
Joys of live streaming, ladies and gentlemen.
It's not our first time.
And I may also be gating myself if I'm speaking too softly. I don't know if that's the issue. I can try to continue speaking up. But at least another solid 9, at least scoring this now 9 for an episode. This is really another dramatic episode like the previous one. The drama and suspense. Although you probably had more suspense in episode 5, the immediate fallout from that and the actions everybody's taking and what happens towards the end of the episode. This one is leaning heavily into we're hanging with our characters and we're talking about this.
Yes, so you did. It's all your fault, Buzz.
Yeah, it's trying to catch out there, Jake. Buzz Nacho has corrupted our stream with his Gamara code, which is very rude.
Well, he didn't wipe us out completely because we're still here.
We're still here.
Our reactor didn't go critical and wipe us out completely.
I got a communique right before. So yeah. Yeah, as far as
I'm the reactor.
I put this episode above the last one. I think because I did my stream earlier today, and then like I was listening back on it, and like the more I talked about it, the more I thought about it. I was like, yeah, you know what? Though a lot of those flaws like combined each individual flaw is not a big deal, but as a pile, it's kind of like, yeah, actually, those kind of irk me as a collective. So let's say I didn't like the episode, but I didn't love it. It was not my favorite. This episode I thought was excellent. I thought it was super fun. They got the plot moving. We got to see all the different angles. I was a little surprised to see Alex and Bobbie they had another core or whatever.
That surprised me
okay,
too.
Okay, wait. I'm going to speak to this right now because we talked about this last week.
We did.
When I watched the after party with Ty and that guy.
Okay.
According to Ty, in this universe, to dump the core, quote unquote, is to deliberately dump the plasma in the engine. Somehow there is a mechanism to get it out, although it wasn't shown very clearly. Somehow they were able to just push it out of the bell housing.
Okay.
And that basically, that it's kind of a scram on the reactor. It's dumping all the reactants, and that was the glowing ball of plasma out the back end.
Okay.
The problem is that they do lose all power, and it leaves them at the mercy of, as we might see in this episode, what essentially happens is they go dark, but they were prepared for it in a certain way. So they didn't dump the core. It is an emergency procedure to dump the reactant plasma out the back end.
Okay. That was also once those belters got alongside of them and they got the door open. Oh, my camera's doing it again. And they got the door open, and then Bobbie's just there with the power armor and the minigun.
You called it, Matt. You called it. That armory of hers was going to come back.
Well, that's not what I was referring to, because I know her power armor is always part of the show, so I'm sure that's going to be there. But I was referring more to that armory of all the weapons and tactical nukes and shit that she has on Mars. Mm-hmm. That I think is going to come into handy later. No, I thought that was dope though, when she basically kicks open the door and just blows them to shit. That was pretty badass.
That was great, man. But it was a callback to the first episode, because she only acquired that power armor in the first episode of this season.
You know what? Good point, dude. That's a good point. That's right. That's right.
It's classic power armor. She just picked it up, but she had the forethought to think she needed it, and she stowed it on the Razorback. And
she's a badass.
The idea that she's gonna leave it later. She's not just a badass. She's intelligent. She has not been shown to not think about these things. Therefore. She is also not, as some people have been saying, a Mary Sue.
No, who was saying that
ahead of time? It's an offhand comment that some people refer to some of the characters because, well, we're gun shy. Not gun shy fandom. We are gun shy. We are concerned about these things, so we watch for it. And sometimes we see shadows. We see the monsters in the shadows that are just the plant behind the door in the bad light. It's something we're shot at.
Just right? A tactician. Yeah. I always had a problem with her losing the arm wrestling bout, or winning the arm wrestling bout with her own power armor. That I always hated that. I always thought that was so fucking stupid. It was really
silly.
It's stupid. And in this scene, she's holding two spaceships together with her power armor. And it's okay, so she could, I guess then her physical strength could do that then, because in season 2, you showed me she was stronger than her power armor. So I think maybe it's stuff like that people are kind of oh, here we go. I know I was the first time I watched it. I was oh boy, we got another Mary Sue in our hands.
Well,
but she's not
right.
With the power armor thing though, presumably you could set the level of force that it can exert, right? So
sure.
Think of it like maxing a bench press.
Oh, so okay. She does break it though. The thing does go. Pss, pss, pss.
Yep.
So
he overpowers whatever setting it's at so much so that it produces sparks. I mean, what was happening in this episode was happening to it in that episode.
Buzz not
understood that. Amos understood that arm wrestling scene.
I would love to know how I misunderstood it. I've seen it about 14 times. I want to know. I really do. I genuinely do. Because I just thought it was her just winning. I don't know. I'd love to hear what the other explanation is.
I think he's kind of I'm speaking for him now, but I think he was just trying to take this out of you.
Maybe, but Buzz Nacho in my earlier stream had some pretty strong opinions, so I don't know. We'll see. I'm
I
curious.
really think it was about
he
the
can
power
speak to that
setting
too.
that it was set to, right? And if she overpowered a certain amount of torque, that makes
Please,
it.
Buzz Nacho, if you were serious about that, you can always join in. We need the chat to be just as a part of this as we are. This is part of our family, our core, our tribe.
So what he says is she's fighting. Well, I assume it's a he. I don't know. She's fighting against the base mechanic force. It's also foreshadowing her uplifting her unpowered suit to kill the hybrid. Yeah. Lifting the suit and beating the servos that power it is two different things. Like the amount of force that suit can exert versus how much it weighs is very different.
Yeah, but he's saying the base mechanic force, so essentially it's not powered. So she's fighting against, say the inert hydraulics, for example.
Okay, maybe.
I would say, well, let's just talk about the base mechanic force. Maybe it's got a normative level. It's got a normative level that it always tries to exert to based on the command that it received, and it was being unpiloted, so it was uncommanded. Hydraulics, no, I would say definitely servos. You can overcome an electromagnetic servo drive. Overcoming hydraulics is damn near impossible for a
whichever.
You work
leverage.
Shop,
you need
right?
leverage. Yes. I know about these things. You need leverage or significant counterforce.
And I just can't imagine that a human being could generate enough to break the power armor. It would seem like a massive design flaw if one could. Because let's say you're in combat and someone decides to just like rip the thing off and it could just expose you to the elements while you're on the surface of another planet or something.
Yeah, but that's when it's in an unpowered state, right? And that's what we're getting at. So if you're powered and you're fighting and you're working with it, you're going to have the enhancements of the suit engaged. So she was just arm wrestling against the inert suit, which is a totally different ball game.
John, sorry, we're actually talking about season 2.
I don't know how the hell we got back there.
Where Bobbie is arm wrestling her power armor. But the reason we're even going down that road is because apparently there's chatter that she said that people say Bobbie's a Mary Sue, and we are getting rid of that notion. That's a false notion.
We're arguing against that. Exactly.
That's what I'm trying to say.
I mean, the woman is a badass. She's trained all of her life. Right. And, to your point, Matt, they even expand her size and power in the books compared to what we're seeing in the show to an extent.
Expand. Right? Get it? Huh?
So, I mean, to me, somebody who's a trained special forces operator like her, and for example, having the foresight to have the powered armor with her while they're out in the Razorback.
Yeah.
Just in case. I mean, that is all about being prepared, which is exactly what I would expect from a highly trained special forces operative, particularly in a militant nation like the Republic of Mars.
Absolutely. And one of the earmarks of Mary Sue's is that they get their abilities without earning them. That's absolutely not her. She's a hard worker. You always see her training, and everyone likes her. That's not true either. In fact, she tends to kind of rub most people the wrong way because she's super gruff and super almost pig-headed. So those are two giant characteristics of Mary Sue that I don't see in her at all.
And there's certainly nobody telling her that she's the key to everything.
Absolutely not. No. She's a
Nor is
powerful
that
character.
assumed by anyone or spoken about her without any proof to the contrary, without any proof to support.
Right. And she doesn't beat people and then they automatically like her. No, I don't think so. I don't see any strong argument for it at all.
Yeah. So I mean, she's the furthest thing from a Mary Sue in my mind. It's everything about her is believable to me. I don't think she's done anything that is out of bounds for an extreme special forces operative, which is what she is.
Right. I agree. No, I mean, I appreciate that people are on the lookout for that kind of characterization because we see it all too much in genre. I don't think it applies in this situation at all.
Yeah, I don't either. And I think most of that, honestly, is coming from people who are trying to. I think it's coming from your typical, say, Last Jedi fan. Okay, so what's the big complaint about Rey in Star Wars? Oh, she's a Mary Sue, right? So they're just trying to say, because people like us who felt that way don't have a problem with Bobbie. So they're just trying to, oh, she's a Mary Sue. They're just trying to throw it in our face.
You know what? That's a good point, Jake. It might be coming from that type of, bitter fan, because it's like there are a lot of people who are trying to do that with the Luke Skywalker reveal in The Mandalorian. They're trying to, subvert it, like attack the notion that it was right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can have what opinions you want about whether, whether Luke showing up was done well. I mean, let's face it, the CGI sucked. But the moment is not remotely outside of his known power set, particularly several years after Return of the Jedi.
Oh yeah, no, I don't know if anyone's arguing that it, in canon it doesn't make sense. I don't want this to turn into like another Star Wars discussion, like every discussion ends up turning
change
into.
The topic, by God. Let's get back to the best show on TV.
I did want to address something.
Yeah.
And we can go down all types of roads with the show, like what's going on with Drummer and what's going on with Holden and all types of stuff. And I do want to get into all that. The one thing that did stand out to me that I was a little like, eh.
You didn't get to see enough of Kara G?
Didn't get to see any of Kara G.
You got teased, man. I saw that. I felt for you when that side boob was on the screen. I'm like, man, Matt's going to be so disappointed.
That wasn't even her. That was some other girl.
That's right. That was
yeah. No, what I wanted to address was the scene with Amos and Clarissa towards the end kind of made Amos a manzel.
Yes and no.
Yes and no. He's shirtless. He's totally naked in the snow, basically naked in the snow. And then he's about to get shot. There's nothing he can do. And she comes out of nowhere and saves him.
I mean, here's what I would say to that. A guy getting saved is not necessarily a manzel. Okay, a manzel is an incompetent or incapable, who's begging for or needing to be saved. This was, again, I thought it was very well within what we've seen of these characters. I mean, for a fact that Clarissa's modded. And when she pops her little, tooth thing, she gets these brief periods where she can operate at superhuman levels. I mean, nothing about that was out of what we've already seen.
That's true.
I have a question,
please.
About manzel is essentially from damsel.
Yeah.
What's a damsel in your mind, Matt? Think of matter of fact, you can even bring up images or things like that.
I mean, the first thing that comes into my head is just like, a princess being held in a tower by like an ogre, and like a knight needs to she's just helpless.
Yep.
Helpless.
Now she's not fighting back. She's screaming for help. She's not actually doing anything to better her circumstances. She's just. And you tend to get screen time for this where she's sitting, waiting, screaming her head off, help me, please help me. Mm-hmm. I see this in this particular scene. There he is. Now the guy's laid it out that he's going to kill him. The last thing I see just before I see this blur that ends up being Clarissa is it looked to me like Amos is getting ready to do what he can, even if he dies trying, because he's already told Clarissa, if this goes bad, you run. And it looked to me like he was getting ready to fight, to avoid. If he gets shot, he's going to try to take the guy down, even if it kills him. All I saw was that in that last moment, and then suddenly you get this what is it? It's like a slow-mo moment, and you see the guy's hands on the gun, and he's about to click the thing, and then all of a sudden Clarissa's there, and she's got her
Yeah,
mod.
it was like a bullet time moment. It was like bullet time. Yeah.
Because that's what I saw. If you want to go over and watch that again, I only got to see it once because I didn't get to watch it twice. Too much going on at work.
Yeah, that might be a brief enough scene that you could show it. You got about 10 seconds you can show without getting struck.
Okay, I'll put it in the chat.
Less than 7.
Because it was
image
a little...
would be better. Just take a picture of him.
I think. Okay, let me see here because I've got it. I got it in the back. I can pop it in. Because it was the first thing I thought when I saw it, so I definitely wanted to make sure we addressed it.
Oh, it's worth asking. It is worth asking.
Okay, let me see here. All right.
Now, one of the things I would argue is that do you believe the negotiation they have? Do you believe that Amos leaves himself open like this? Now, there he is. See, he grits his teeth. He grits his teeth, gets ready, and it looks like he's going to do something.
This guy?
And then bullet time. No, the Amos.
Okay.
He gets ready, grits his teeth. He looks like he's going to do something.
Yeah.
Right there.
You're right.
He's getting ready to fight. He's no fucking Mansell.
Okay. And then she just comes out of nowhere and like beats the ever-loving shit out of him. Okay.
Yes.
You know what? You're right. You're right. I guess it was just weird to see Amos need to be rescued. I guess was that.
And my point is, you take that back to how much do you get any dissociation between what you know of Amos and this exchange? Because he's saying, "Well, I ain't got no weapons. All I got is me." The clothes aren't really going to protect him from anything, so that kind of follows. And this guy needs this in order for me to get that far with him. And Amos being able to take that guy down in his skivvies, which I guess from the previous tie in that guy, he was willing to go commando.
Why not?
Yes, that came up in the tie in that guy closer for the previous episode.
Oh, he said he would have gone down if he had to?
They were saying, Wes, no.
Dude, he's such a badass.
He was down for it, huh? Well, that doesn't shock me.
Yeah, okay, you're right. That's a good point. Thanks for like alleviating that concern of mine because I was like,
I'm glad I remembered it. I'm glad I remembered those images.
No, you're 100% right. Like him gritting his teeth and like getting ready to move, I guess was like that was like the difference. He's not helpless. He doesn't need he didn't necessarily need to be rescued. It was just probably the best case scenario. Yeah. Okay. That's
and hey, good news. Amazon didn't kill the stream, man. So
no, that's great. We're still up and running.
And not ghosted.
Still trying to sell your shit for you.
Elvis, Melba saved Amos from becoming Mary Sue invisible.
Good to see you, Elvis. Glad you joined, my friend.
John Hannon. Amos is always ready to die fighting. I think he gains solace from the fact that if he did it, it would be for someone. Yeah. Well, that's something I wanted to get into too, because I was thinking about that like while this was going on, because I'm like, Amos is he's not like a sociopath. Like he does care for people. Like he does have empathy. Like he has all this concern for Clarissa. He goes there out of his own volition to go look into her and ends up saving her and this, that, and the other. But then the very last line of the whole thing where he's just like, when he realizes that he was going to kill that guy no matter what and take his shit or subdue him or whatever, he's like, oh yeah, Holden wouldn't have been down for a move like that. I need my crew. I was just like, wow.
I loved that line of questioning. He actually worked it out after the fact, just speaking out loud and inside of his head, and like, oh geez, I'm actually out of my element. I need Naomi. I need Holden.
Yeah, he needs that. Like he needs the guidance, because he is ultimately a good dude.
They are his centering force.
Yeah, he just doesn't always know how to get to. He always doesn't know what the right thing is. Like he has these kind of weird, just like these synapses that don't quite get there. They get close, but they don't quite get all the way through.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things I think you can say that definitively shows he is not a psychopath is that he recognizes, even if it's maybe after the fact, that maybe he's made the morally wrong choice here, right?
Yes,
and he genuinely, has remorse. I mean, of course, he's willing to do what needs to be done, right? Think back to that scene where, a couple seasons ago, where he says, "Oh, but I am that guy," right? Mm-hmm. When he takes out the doc. But, but you look at him here.
He is the survival first. He is me over everybody else at all costs.
Mm-hmm.
But he's more complex now.
Yep. Well, he says me and his tribe. I mean, like going to the name of this episode, tribe. It's like the people.
There you go.
The people around him. It's like that's always been his true north.
Absolutely.
Just, it's just. I mean, I think that's something that's just so remarkable about this show is how like season after season characters remain consistent, and they don't ever go out of character, and if they do, the show acknowledges it. I think that type of shit is so remarkable about this show. It's just one of the strengths that's just always floors me.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it was, I think we saw more suggestions about what we're going to get out of Philip from this season.
Yeah, good point.
Which I liked. And it was, again, still in this tribes concept and theme that we saw across the episode, right? There are cracks in his hero worship of his dad.
Are you saying Amos?
Philip.
Oh, Philip. Sorry. Yeah. Philip.
Because
yes,
sin kind of breaks him. Yeah, sin kind of breaks him out of that when he stands up to Marco.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and the very next thing is, "I've never seen you like that," and it's like, oh.
And what's her name? Drummer, like saying, getting him interested in the idea of like Naomi being like selfless, sacrificing for other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I liked the conversation that we saw with Drummer's crew. And after, Marco basically throws down the, join me or you're dead, essentially, right? And the conversation that goes on with her crew back in the ship, and one of the I don't know the particular crew member's name. I've never caught that guy's name, but he says, "Look, we don't really have a choice. Marco wants us to think we do, but the fact of the matter is, what he's done is going to cause war. And if we don't join him, we're dead."
That's something interesting too, is that I wanted to acknowledge Buzz's comment here. I think it's great. Amos is at a crossroads. He could easily survive in this post-apocalyptic Earth and regress to his base ways, or he can return to his crew and regain his moral compass. I really think it's very insightful on the whole Amos journey. But Jake, to your point, I don't know, like they're making a lot of assumptions. The crew, like the Belters and the crew of Kamina's ship, that Earth is going to treat them all like they're on the same Belter team. They all kind of keep drawing that conclusion. I'm not sure. Have they explored that? Like, have they tried to reach out to like any UNN ships or like? It just seems like they're like, yeah, we're definitely all gonna be lumped in together. It's like not necessarily. I mean, that guy I feel like Marcos is his own entity, no?
I mean, yes and no, because one of the things that he called out when he was making his case about that was the fact that the two biggest factions have already joined up with Marco.
Okay.
And that was discussed as they were walking down the hall into the ship.
Yeah.
The Pella. Okay. When they were walking down the hall, two of the biggest groups had already given them fealty, these two soldiers for those particular OPA groups. So they know that there's a lot of manpower, there's a lot of people behind Marco. And this other character, this Bertold, is the one who's bringing it up. We're assuming we don't have a choice. And a lot of them are talking about, I mean, you're getting a few sides to the story. It's probably you're probably talking about a lot of fear when we're talking about the people that are in the family crews on Drummer's ships. And it's not unfair to say that they would be operating from the point of fear, but it's also safe to say that they would assume these things because that would be their experience. If you want to talk about characterization, their lines are what was written for them because that is supposed to be the history of the character speaking through them, saying these lines. I don't believe it because Earth has always been against us, just like the other character who mentioned that Earth has always been this way towards us.
Yeah. The girl.
Yeah. And I mean, Elvis, I think, hit it on the head, right? And, Marco's counting on Belter's thinking this way. And we talked about this in streams about earlier episodes, like the end of season 4 and the early episodes in season 5. I think we even brought this up during one of our streams about that first 3-episode drop, and that we all get and understand Marco's motivations because they've got 150, 200 years worth of history that tells them that Earth is going to treat them like shit. And, Marco turning into a terrorist and a warlord, obviously the wrong way to deal with that. But we all understand why he's done it.
And you know what? As I'm thinking about it, it does make sense that Kamina's crew would be fearful because they're like, okay, maybe Earth won't necessarily kill us, but if it's the Belt and Earth and then us, we're going to get caught in the crossfire and we're going to be fucked. Like, they either join up with the people who have been treating them like horribly all these years, and join Earth and just become loyal, which is essentially like what they've been. They kind of just be servants anyway, or join the whole thing with Marco.
Yep.
Wow. It's a tight spot for them, man. Unfortunately, they have to make that choice.
Yeah.
The screws are being turned on them. That whole sequence where they're in the Pella and they're meeting out this stuff. Not to mention the close of that episode where they exchange those two characters, and guess who gets put onto the family ship? The one who just said that if you need me to put someone on an airlock, you call me, not one of these other people.
And she specifically hates Naomi. She specifically has like shit against Naomi. Doesn't like her at all. Remember, like in the episode before this, they had like a little hostile encounter in the galley.
Of course, it is good that she's off the ship now with Naomi.
I was thinking that too. I was like, that probably bodes well for Naomi.
Yeah,
a little bit better.
I thought it was interesting the way Marco has that like tactic of ruling, where like when a ship joins the fleet, they swap like a crew member so that there's kind of like this bond, like an interlocking of crew, but also like it kind of blurs the lines between the factions. Like it just does make it all like his orbit, like, and no longer like these sort of segmented factions, just one united force. Thought that was really
that's also a bit of further tension too, because as Drummer said, as they're switching over their crews, he's family, and we're all family here because they're closer than blood on that ship. They're close to each other relationship. There is a level of proximity for everyone in there, almost like, I don't even know if you'd believe more than family, because you have to believe the situation on their ship, that everybody is in it for everybody else, maybe even more than a normal Belter relationship. So how is the introduction of this new crewman? I had her name at one time.
I don't know. It's I think Bud's got it right here, Carol. And I mean,
Carol.
That's it.
She Marco's eyes and ears in Drummer's faction. I mean, that's the real purpose, right?
Yeah.
I mean, on the surface, it's about a united front,
but she's also the virus inside their healthy body.
Yes. Yeah, and I agree, John. Marco does see Drummer as a threat, right? Because he certainly knows about the relationship that she had with Ashford. He's got to have an inkling of it.
And that 100%, and that Marco killed 2 people close to Drummer, and Drummer has no problem standing up to him. And I'm pretty sure he can deduce that most likely the only reason they had to really think about it was because Drummer didn't want to join.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, I think he's not stupid. He's a very, very clever guy. So I think, he knows. And Marco's saying that, or Buzz saying that he fears for Drummer. I think you're right. I think it's going to get a little tense, and who knows, man? I don't know. Yeah,
well, she's there to kill Drummer if she steps out of line for sure.
It's a hell of a development, man. It's a hell of a development. I like the way they have all these opportunities to like grab Marco, and they just can't do anything about it. They just kind of have their hands tied, It's like in season 4 where she was going to kill Marco and then didn't, and now she's like, I guess I have to join him. He's got all these Martian warships. Like, what else can we really do? Yeah, his twisted like authority is really really intimidating and really good writing, good villain description.
Yeah, now,
he is the excellent.
Going back to the Razorback. And the ship that tried to board him when Bobbie pulled out the power armor. That was a Martian ship, wasn't it?
I don't think so. That tried to board them was a Belter ship.
No, yeah.
It was an old Belter ship. It was okay.
It was a weapon-equipped freighter.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's what I saw too, because the Martian ships are usually really sleek and clean and like efficient, and the Belter ships. I always the analogy that the creators use is that the Earth ships are Windows, the the Martian ships are Mac, and then the Belter ships are Linux. So like Linux is like cobbled together and just kind of like a little more like loose parts and just sort of these wild ships, and the Martian ships are always super sleek and clean and mean because they've got the best technology in the solar system. Yes, Elvis points out that it was a Belter ship. Yeah. So Avasarala is back in the fold, eh? That the new prime minister asked her to be in the cabinet.
But it wasn't just that. I mean, she's still worried about her. I mean, this is why I love the drama in this show. She's still worried about her husband, doesn't know what happened to him, and she's like fidgety and on the edge of losing it because she wants to know he's okay. And it's almost like you feel that in her tension. She's getting what she wants. She's getting back into the halls of power. But as she's putting on her jewels and getting ready to look the part, she's still not all there. She's still incomplete because of her personal needs.
Well, I mean, and she's shaking that whole time after she has the meeting with the interim sec gen. I mean, she's, and I couldn't decide if it was fear, if it was nerves, a combination of both, shock, but it was good. The scene was powerful.
She's a genius. That actress is a genius. She's so powerful.
Love her.
I never know how to pronounce her name. Shora Agadashlu. I don't know. She's great. Shori. She's so powerful, but because you could Avasarala is such a great character because it's like she's grieving, right? Like her maybe her husband's dead, Earth's in shambles, who knows? But she still knows, like she still has that like commitment to duty, like the necessity to lead and be there when Earth needs her to be. And that duality was living inside her so powerfully in that scene. It was really impressive.
I love that scene. I mean, I'm just like watching her. Yeah, I mean, exactly, John. I mean, dead on. It was. She's a hell of an actress, man. I mean, I don't even know what to say beyond that. It was that scene was perfect.
Yep. She's one of the strongest actresses on this show, and that's saying something because this is a strong cast.
Yeah.
Never got elected.
Pretty much.
Well, she's a good advisor. She's not the great face because she gets shit done and that's not politics. You know what I mean? That's not like the public persona. She's too rough around the edges, too harsh, too direct, too necessary though. I mean, that's what they need. But that's never. That was never really going to work, but I love her in this role. Yeah, I'm actually looking at the scene right now. Like the tears in her eyes as she's like processing everything is so remarkable. She's literally shaking and trying to compose herself and putting on her jewelry. And she's like, fuck, like she can't handle it. Like she's still like, she's almost mad at herself for being emotional.
She is every emotion there, isn't she?
Yeah, she's great, man. She's great. She's one of the first things you see on this show. She's one of the first like things you connect with when you meet her like playing with her grandkids, and then the next thing she does is torture that belter with the stealth parts, the stealth components. And it's like from the jump, man, she is an anchor on this show, and she's really one of the foundational bricks.
And I remember one or both of you said in our previous streams for the last week how much I didn't get to say it because you guys did, that she was missed. We missed seeing our Christian in the last episode. She was not there. We went right from episode 4 to episode 6 without seeing her, and finally the very first thing you get to see is there she is, and she's dealing with it, and she's barely dealing with it, but this is the strength. She's barely there, and she's just maintaining, and she manages to have the meeting with them. She gratefully accepts, and then she puts on her stuff, and it's just like Jake said, shit, she's putting it on. It's like, I can't be this way or something. I don't even know, or this is the image I have in my head, but it's marvelous.
Yeah, and that's what's amazing about a performance with that much complexity. It's like great art. It's like up for interpretation, and like no interpretation's wrong because it's so vivid, you know?
Yeah. It was just so good.
What's your guys over under that Clarissa and Amos are gonna hook up? What do you guys think? You think that's gonna happen? You think that's in the future?
I think it's inevitable.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah, I don't think there's a question at this point. The question is, will they not? Is there any way to prevent it from happening at this point? That's my take.
Yeah, it's a really interesting relationship. I didn't expect was going to be here, obviously, because Clarissa's in jail, so who's to think she would be on the show? But watching them, together bonding on this little road trip. And, Amos kind of being that, like, he's a decent leader, but he's like, he says he needs his crew. And Clarissa, this, murderer on the road to redemption. It's really interesting little sub story. I never saw that coming.
Didn't even know it was going to happen, but this is something that I'm certain Lord Thoth would have reminded us that because it would have come up in the book or something like that. But it's very nice. It's nice. This is providing some nice moments, excellent characterization for Amos, and building a character that that maybe you didn't think too much about because, well, she was.
Why would you?
She was an antagonist. She was a bad guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
In season 3, or am I getting that wrong?
Nope, 3.
Yeah, and I'm with John. I'm not betting against that at all.
This is I wanted to show the contrast. Look at this. Bud says, I see it more as a brother-sister relationship, but we'll see. John Hammond, Amos 100% getting in there. That's a contrast for sure. Lightem Am. I wonder what that means. I would like to have seen her hint at her good fortune to be near to being in charge again. I think you're talking about Avasarala. Well, it's not just good fortune. It's not just good fortune. She saved Earth because she is good at her job and was following up on the leads that she was given. That like
using every tool that she had available to her as well.
Absolutely. And she tried as hard as she could to get through to Nancy Gow, and Nancy wouldn't listen. And even while she was being frozen out of it, she found the chef in the back door and gave her like the tablet so that they can communicate. So as much as it is, good fortune, as it were, it's mostly her doing. I mean, if it wasn't for her, it just wouldn't be.
Yeah. And, if you take a look at this scene, if you want to share that screen there, Matt.
Yeah, buddy.
I mean, I don't think she's feeling any good fortune here. I mean, just look at that.
That's a good point, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she's so shaken up. And she doesn't know if her I guess if still her husband. She doesn't know if he's dead.
Yeah.
Oh, something I wanted to point out too, dude. I got the playing in the background. We're 9 minutes in, and then they go into the credits.
Yes, it was so deep into the show before they hit the opening credits.
I know. I was like, what a teaser, man! That was awesome.
I remember, a couple seasons ago when you were doing your episode by episode reviews. We were talking about the cold opens being good, and they're back this season, and that one was. I wasn't even sure they were going to show the opening credits.
I forgot about them.
Yeah.
Completely forgot about it. I was like, oh, right. Yeah. Wow. That's good. That's really, I like that kind of storytelling too. I like when a movie has got like a nice 4-minute, 5-minute long scene, and then they hit you with the title. You're like, oh, because it's like, that was all set up, baby. Here's the story now. I was like, wow, that was really cool. I love that.
Yeah. It was 9 minutes in.
The actress plays the crack and the hard leader perfectly. Yes.
Oh,
that's
God, yeah.
Avasarala. Yeah.
Well put.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, Lightning. She's not feeling good fortune. Yes, I would have liked to have seen that feeling. That's me. You know what? It might be something like this is not the best example because I mean the movie is aged really poorly. But do you remember like when a captain gets back, like when like Kirk is a better example. When Kirk like gets back on the Enterprise and he just kind of like feels the ship, it's like it's his again, like, oh, hey, old friend, you know what I mean? Like that, I think it's like kind of what we'll get that moment with Avasarala. Like she might, when she's back in power, she might have that moment of kind of like, oh yeah, I missed this. This is cool. This is
sitting in the chair.
Yeah. I just don't know.
I'm meant to be.
Yeah, I don't know if right now is the time though, just because it's like it's so much brutality going on. There's so much life, and it's undeniable that she's supposed to be in power. Like eventually that was going to happen.
Where she's meant to be is not a good place to be right now.
Yeah,
but she will be better there because it is using another Star Trekism back when Star Trek was good. It's her first best destiny.
Oh, I just noticed something that was a good little detail. So, because I was like, that didn't work. When Bobbie is on the little catwalk in between the two ships, and she's just lighting him up with the little minigun, and the third guy is like going inside the ship. And I'm like, why didn't she shoot that person? Why did she give him time to get inside the ship? On the screen, it said reloading. And I was like, damn. They really did that detail. I was like, all right, that was nice and tidy. I like that.
This man, Nat, this is the Expanse. The devil's in the details, and we've got people thinking about the details on this show.
I know. They always shock me when they address those things because it's always stuff that like you could forgive, and they cinch that little seam up. They never let that stuff go. I love that.
And they are doing their job, and that's one of the best things about this. We can plug this to high heaven because of the details that are sewn up, because they care about it. They are loving their job so much. They're making such a wonderful piece of entertainment. They care about it so much that they think about these things. Oh, what about this? You got to think like there's brainstorming sessions because they're all sharing the ideas. They're getting this thing done, and they're making a masterpiece. And everyone cares about it so much that they're willing to put in that little extra. Well, what about this thing? And you've got a bunch of good people coming up with great ideas and covering bases and caring about what they're making and getting as close to excellent product as possible.
And the real gift is that these guys know their universe as well as anyone possibly could, because they've built it from the ground up, from when it was a tabletop RPG to when it was a novel to while it's a TV show. It's like they know all the details inside out. And I just have so much admiration and respect for how much they fight to keep those little details in there. because it's stuff you could totally do without, but it's these little things that just make the world feel that much more real. And I'm blown away when they do stuff like that. It's so cool. Like the interim prime minister tripping when he goes over to Avasarala's desk because the gravity's a little off.
Yeah, that was good. It's the little details everywhere.
Yeah. Last ep, Holden, this is Elvis. Talk about details. Last ep, Holden probably checked Roci, but Gamara code can be found only if known what to look for.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a question that we had last episode where we were worried about why didn't Holden check out the ship? He knew that begins with an S. The engineer was all over it, getting it ready for him.
Sakai.
Sakai.
The guy.
Yep. That she had been all over it. Had he checked it out? Well, that's part of this thing. It was meant to be hidden in system, or at least that's what we can theorize from this. Because wait a second, what is this Gamara code that? And now her head. Now she's going. Her name is going to leave my head.
Naomi.
Yep, that's it. Naomi knew about it. Naomi questioned them about it, and it was like she knows, and we know her skill as an engineer, at least the way she's characterized. This would be information that she'd know, and few people would be able to find if they knew about it because they were serving on the Behemoth together. And then she questioned Sin about it, and like, did they put the Gamara code in the Rocinante? And it's like everything about that is like, ooh.
I talked about it earlier today, though. I just think when Buzz Nacho had a great fix. It was just something like, we ran the double diagnostics. You're cool on the ship, everything we fit, something like that. Like, it just seemed weird. It just seemed like something that like just the show didn't deal with it. The show led me to believe Holden didn't think about it.
Exactly.
And that's the issue. So it's just, it's a little thing. Like I was saying earlier today, there's so many excellent things about this show that when they make little things happen like that, I can forgive it. I'm still going to point it out, but I can forgive it.
Yeah, I mean, I can forgive it as well. I mean, that wasn't a little thing to me. I think we all, sort of called that one out last week, and it was
reasonable.
Yes, it was one of our biggest. It was one of the big issues is that Holden is also not an idiot. We've got a bunch of people who behave smartly on this episode, and the first thing we're going to call out is when certain moments are missed. Now, did you need that moment? Yes, I think we needed that moment. Could it have been outed in editing? Possibly. We don't have that information. It definitely was not something that was spoken on in any of the other promotional materials I saw, so they didn't talk about that. But
I agree.
A little side word or a little like inset second crew, second gear, when they're taking pictures of hands doing controls and things like that. A little picture of a screen that says diagnostics complete would have been
really
just like the reloading on Bobbie's panel.
Yeah, I don't want to get into this argument too much because I did it all today. We did it on the last stream, but I think Holden didn't think of it. He's a person. He was distracted. He should have, but he failed to do it. I don't buy it because when you go back and rewatch it, he's talking to Sakai and he's calm. So he's clearly had time to digest things, make decisions, fix whatever was going on. I find it very tough to believe that Holden is the type of guy who would be running all these problems, thinking all these things, and then it would never occur to him that his ship, the most prized thing that they have, he didn't have an instinct that maybe she fucked with it. I don't buy it.
He's also been characterized as a sort of quote, he's a heroic character. He's looking for a cause. He's intelligent. And he's made for this type of work. A lot of people have referred to this, and it's been backed up by his actions, by certain snap judgments that he makes.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't
the appropriate steps.
I really don't want to belabor the topic anymore, just because I've covered it so much today. We covered it so much last week. I really just want to move on. But I do want to move on because there was one thing that was addressed in this episode that we talked about last week that we didn't have a strong conclusion on, which was, did Philip know that Naomi was trying to kill Marcos with the knife?
Hell yes, he did.
And
I don't think so.
it was revealed in this
It
episode.
was in this episode.
It was in this
I was
episode.
right. I called that. Hell yes, I called that.
I missed that.
Marcos
In the
said she
Go ahead.
tried to take out my life or made an attempt on my life. He said that. So someone
when Philip did not take the knife from her, he ushered her out of the room and said, "I just saved your life." And I'm going like, he actually knew about it. And it was this episode that he referred to it, that now the words are gone for me, but it was like that. And I was
made
going
an
like,
attempt in my life or something.
did know.
Yeah.
They did know, and that's the case. He knew that, and that information was shared.
And the show definitively made that statement, because not like Naomi made more than one attempt at Marco's life. That was the only one. And he says that she needs to, that's why he says he wants to space her, because he says she made an attempt on my life, so on and so forth.
Yeah. Buzz makes a good point here, though.
This is an interesting point.
And he's right. The knife got exposed.
Jake, let me just read it in case someone's not watching, like not visually watching, No, guy. Buzz not just says, no, guys. They only now know she was going to kill Marco because as she struck Sin with the wrench, the knife flew out. They can then deduce that Naomi was on the bridge to kill Marco.
And that's fair, because
fair.
I really did not get the impression that when Philip pulled her out of there, that he knew that she was about to kill Marco. I'm with Buzz on that one.
It's a tough one because we were talking about it, because like I think it might have been a mistake in the filmmaking then because of the previous episode, because it looks too obvious that how could he not have seen her going for this? She had her arm pulled back, like she was winding up for a home run. So it seems like, and look, what I think happened was they were focusing on the camera, on the knife for dramatic effect. And then they moved the story by him just grabbing her and moving her off the bridge. I still think that's a little like it's either Philip let her go with the knife or the show took some liberties to extend the drama.
I'm leaning with the latter on that one. I really do. And because exactly. Right. Buzz says he thinks Philip would have disarmed her if he'd known at the moment. And I'm in complete agreement.
So, yeah. So that, I guess it's reasonable to assume, it's not really a big deal as I think about it. Because that whole loop has been closed now, because now that we have, Marco knowing she was going to try to kill him. So that whole loop is closed. So it's like, this is a moot point anyway. But it is interesting to note, I think, because it is a detail that was it was vague. If we're having a debate about it, it was vague, right?
Yeah. And that's fair. It's certainly fair. It's, Oliver makes an interesting comment about this episode though. So what do you think there, Matt?
The biggest problem I have in this episode is that Philip did not know about Naomi's history being one of the most famous people in the galaxy.
Where was the source of information?
What do you mean?
I think
the source of information was his father and whatever any of the other characters would tell him. And right now, Sin has apparently been deficient in his bringing up of Philip. So most of the messages he would have got was that Naomi was the person who left you behind, who wanted to go with her Earther buddies and do all this other stuff. He has a completely colored version of her history.
Yeah, and that's definitely, I think, the answer, and because he doesn't know because Marco didn't want him to know.
Buzz Nacho says, I think this says more about Marcos's manipulation over Philip.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, but he'd have to control his media, right? If she was a public figure, which she was, the whole crew of the Roci is public figures, right?
Mhm.
That's a pretty strong control of his world.
Well, I mean, I have this image of Marco saying fake news now, right? You know? I had this like
Hilarious.
popped into my head. You know? So
Listen to me. She never did anything like that. She's selfish. That's fake news. That's fake news.
I mean, that totally popped into my head, man.
And remember, news that is reported is not always 100% complete in its details, and she was just a belter on the crew, while a lot of the news might have been oriented a specific way, especially with Holden in charge.
Answer is that if Naomi is not a public figure, Philip would be 1000% daddy's boy.
We did see cracks in that starting particularly in this episode.
We do see that. We see him being characterized more as he doesn't necessarily believe everything he's been spoon-fed or everything he's been exposed to, and maybe he has seen enough material that now as a young man being questioning, he's asking questions, he's being impertinent in order to get the information that he wants.
Yep. It's interesting because it's funny. Like, I think Oliver bringing up that point, it is an interesting point overall, but it didn't stand out to me at all. I didn't notice it. And it's like, I guess Marco could process the information for him. He could be like, yeah, they say that, but what they're not saying is da 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 da. Like you said, it could be manipulation. It could just be like this kind of dome. People do that all the time. I mean, we as a people don't believe the news we see. Everyone's got a different opinion on the same fact, on the same story. Like, what are they lying about? What are they hiding? So that seems, I guess it seems reasonable that he could have controlled what information Philip received. And if he's like, Phil's supposed to be like in his teens, it's not that hard to manipulate like the information a teenager gets or his worldview and like form him. It's not, I buy it.
The kid's what, 15 to 17 years old, somewhere in that range?
Gotta be, right? Can't be much older than that.
Yeah, I mean, you may not be able to completely control what media he's consuming, but you may be able to control his perception of what he's seeing.
Absolutely. And if he looks up to Marco like a god, like it seems that he does, then I buy it. Personally, I buy it. But I can respect you not having you not buying it. But for me, I don't know. It worked. It worked. I think Buzz is right. I think Philip seeing that the infamous drummer was speaking praise of Naomi really spiked his curiosity.
Oh yeah, you bet he.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that was cool, and I liked that drummer's loyalty to Naomi was still there. Is that like, it's there, and it's going to clearly be a part of the story moving forward. And I thought that was great to see. I was like, I like that because it's a strong relationship for both of them, and it's cool that it's like playing out this far down the road.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm laughing a little bit because I actually decided to go over to the Expanse and open up the details page, and the first thing that I see on the top reviews from the United States are weekly release, weekly scenario basis, bad service because of weekly release. Those are all 1-star ratings, followed by 5-star, 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 5-star. Love this show. Expanse is great. Rises like a fiery phoenix. Thank you, Amazon. So on and so forth.
Well,
there's so much salt over the weekly release.
I mean, that's really, that's, what it is though, because I think when the idea was first, like when I first heard about like that even being something that they should do moving forward, I heard it on the Inquisition. I heard Doomcock and Gary talking about it. And I was like, no, like I love my binging. I like getting it all at once. Like that's fun. That's enjoyable for me. But when I heard the argument against it, that the shows come and go is like, oh, that's 100% correct. Like you watch a show and then you binge it in a week or, whatever. And then you move on to the next thing, a show that hangs around, that has a weekly release with all this buzz around it. It elevates the show to a super high level that you just can't compete with in the binge model. It's impossible.
Yeah, and a good example of that is There's another show that just released that I think everybody on this panel really likes, and that's Cobra Kai. I'm a huge fan of Cobra Kai. Great show. Absolutely love it. I put out a video on Cobra Kai and it does nothing. I do a stream on The Expanse, it goes bonkers. I do a stream on a terrible show, The Stand, does great. What's different about it? We got one amazingly great show in The Expanse on a weekly release cycle. We've got an equally great show of a very different type in Cobra Kai, and you know, the interest just isn't there, despite both shows being wonderful.
And the interest is there in a shitty show for The Stand that's weekly.
Yes.
I think you're right, dude. I think because when there's a weekly show, you only get like a little drip, you know, and you're so excited for the next drip that you want to talk about it and you want to hear what other people are talking about it and explore these ideas and speculate about the future. What's it going to be? I think if you have all the answers already, I mean, look no further than The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I appreciate that everyone likes it, but I'm very much more aligned with Critical Drinkers' opinions that it's, you know, a lot of time-consuming side quests and it's a pretty thin script. That's my opinion. But it was the biggest show of the year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was a weekly release, and it gets people excited. It gets people talking. You know, it's an undeniable model, and I think Amazon does it perfectly with giving us 3 at the jump. I think that's genius.
I like how they've chosen to do it. I agree. I like that 3 episode drop and then go weekly. Although, you know, what Light of Mam's singing here is not bad either.
You know, I don't have a problem with this. I like this weekly episode. I have no issue with it. This is my favorite show. You know, it's an hour long. If it was a half hour, maybe I'd be a little more annoyed with it. But the fact that I'm enjoying it. Like every hour I get, I'm in love. I feel grateful for. It makes me want to think about it. It prolongs the experience. You know, it gives me more time to ruminate on what can be. You know, think about it more, talk about it with you guys for longer. I mean, if we got all episodes all at once, right, we could break it down episode by episode, but would we? Would that be interesting to anybody?
After that point, after everybody has already seen the episode and they're already drawing their own conclusions for it, why do they need to be talked about? And they're forming their opinions and they're moving on to the next thing. Because I appreciate. Let's put it this way, because I was laughing seeing that bias between the people who want it dropped all. I want all of my entertainment right now so I can consume it and move on to the next thing, or however you want to put it, because I do not want to minimize anyone's opinion of it either, because obviously now I'm going to have trouble. Lighten am. Once at least a trickle or something like that. Light a ma'am. Sure. Because there's going to be plenty of people who still want that. Now, yeah, I'm going to fully side. I'm too close to being a boomer not to say that I have an appreciation of this release and then wait and release and then wait, because I appreciate the idea of how much this stretches out the experience, sort of denies you getting to the end and just builds up. And I'm talking from both sides of this. I've seen this happen in good shows, and I've seen this happen in completely crap shows. And there's nothing worse than getting to the end of a series that is so completely screwed up by the time that you reach the end, that you're going, why did I spend all of that time going through each of the episodes every week, this week after this week, and they screwed up the end? Well, on the opposite, you get things like this where every week it's good. It might be better. It might not be perfect the next week, but we're getting so much good coming out of this. And I have reasonable amount of faith in what I'm getting out of these people. I was just going back over some of the episodes of the Next Generation Star Trek, going over some of the details of it here, and I see Naren Shankar's name showing up, and I'm going like, Oh, look, there he is. There's
Yeah.
Mr. Executive Producer who's making some good decisions. I
That
have
makes
a fair amount
sense.
of faith. I have a fair amount of faith in this, and as much as I would want to know exactly how this is going to end right now, I do not feel like they are baiting and switching me. I do not feel that way with this
I don't
show.
either.
I do not feel like I need to see it now as much as, okay, I got some good. Oh, I'd like to know the next step, but I'll find out in another week.
Yeah, and it occupies more time in my brain too. Like if it's on, like weekly, so if it's spread out over 10 weeks or 7 weeks or whatever, like it's in my brain more, so it goes deeper, and my appreciation for it, if I like it, is deeper, because like even season 4, which I've watched twice, I had to struggle to remember it. I was like, wait, what were those details? Like, because it was boof, boof. Like I got it so fast that it's not the kind of thing where I'm not really sitting there absorbing it. I'm not really ruminating it, talking about it with you guys and having this like prolonged experience. And the thing is, look, man, making television is really expensive, time consuming, and difficult to do. And it does a disservice to what it is to just consume it so quickly and move on to the next thing. I mean, it really deserves more like, pomp and circumstance. Like it should be up in bright lights, and there should be like a marquee, so to speak, proverbially. Like it deserves that, because it is so time consuming and hard to make this type of stuff that if you just burn through it and move on, like it really cheapens what makes it so special.
Oh, absolutely, man. I mean, I love this, and I'm going to go back and watch and rewatch, because season 5 to me is the best season of this show so far. I
would not speak against that.
I don't have an argument against it for sure. I
mean, Marco is a villain is so fucking good. The guy he's perfect. The actor, I'd have to look his name up right now. I don't have him on the top of my head, but he is amazing. And I hope we see this guy in so much more stuff. But he is such a good villain. And something we've talked about on your streams before, Matt, is that, the good villain is so critical to your show's success, right? And he's been the best villain we've had in this series so far, which in 5, let's say 4 outstanding seasons and 1 good season, that's saying something, right?
Yeah, I think you're right.
You probably threw up this name here, Keon Alexander.
Keon Alexander is the guy's name. You're right, dude, because in the first 3 seasons, like there was kind of a cadre of villains, right? Like it was like the proto-molecule itself. Then there was Anderson Dawes, then there was Jules Pierre Mao, but it was they're almost more fighting like a force, like an idea. Now that it's all personified in one person, it's more menacing, and it's more like a traditional narrative, like a traditional arc, like hero, David and Goliath kind of story, which that's always good storytelling. I mean, I can't knock that. Like it works. And I think you're right. Like, I'm finding this extraordinarily compelling, and I do like the fact that it's a little streamlined. It does kind of find it, like, even though the show is super spread out, the goals are kind of everyone's in it together, like moving separately towards the same goal of getting rid of Marcos. I like it. Yeah, I think it works tremendously.
Yeah, and God, he's so good. Man, he's good. And and his part is written so well, like Lida Mam says in the chat, and dead on.
What were you talking about? Sorry, which?
So having that critical key amazing villain is so good. One of the things I'm hoping that we'll see from building the buzz that we're getting by having this come to us slowly, and this is becoming, or at least in my circles, a water cooler show, right? Everybody talks about how they want the next Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
That's what everybody is looking for with their premiere series on their streaming services or their networks, what have you. And a premiere series is something that everybody talks about. Yep. And the fact of the matter is, you do not fucking get that with a binge drop. You can't.
You can't. Name one. Name one that was a binge show that, well, Stranger Things. I'd say
That's the only one.
Only example of a binge show that was like so super, that was so huge. Go to the weekly thing. Buzz is saying that the Expanse was a release weekly on Sci-Fi for 1 to 3 seasons. Amazon dropped it season 4 all at once. Yes, that is true, but it was on the Sci-Fi channel. Like, I know this is my favorite show, but who the hell watches a Sci-Fi channel?
I didn't watch it because it was on Sci-Fi.
Yeah, I would
the same here because it was Tiffy.
Yep.
Yeah,
Sci-Fi died a long time ago. I'm sorry. It's.
I mean, it's like that was it's amazing that this show came out of Sci-Fi, and I can't believe they would get rid of such a powerful property. Like, it's the best thing they've ever made, and they're just like, we don't need this. It's like, okay, I guess make Sharknado 8 because this is. I don't know what to tell you. But the thing is, because it was there, like, because it was on that small, like, insignificant network, who really gave a shit? You know what I mean? It didn't have any kind of clout. Now that it's on Amazon, it really should be the biggest show right now, especially with so little content out there. And honestly, I mean, look, there's a very passionate fan base out there, obviously. I mean, the 3 of us, 100%. Look at there's 18 people watching right now. All my videos on the Expanse do really well, like, relative to my channel. And it's like, so there are people that come and are hungry to talk about it, hungry to absorb it. But still, I don't know. I don't know if I feel like a buzz around this show. Do you guys?
I am seeing more buzz than I expected. I mean, one of the things we can use to gauge how the buzz is going, I mean, let's face it, we're small channels, right? Sure. We are. And if a 2-hour stream that we did on my channel last week pulls in, 100 watch hours on a channel with 210 subs, that's pretty goddamn good. Yeah. And now we're doing the same thing here on your channel this week. And, this is going to do, I expect this is going to perform very well for you. And we're small. I mean, we are tiny YouTube channels. I mean,
that video I put out about the Expanse, about it being canceled, it was just me basically reading an article, 40,000+ views.
Yeah. And you had like 100 subs at the time?
I think 63.
I mean, that's insane. And that suggests to me that there is indeed interest, there is buzz building, and passion is absolutely there. So if the release cadence that they've built for this works the same way it did for the Expanse as it did for the boys, the season 6 final season, that's not necessarily final.
God, I hope not. I hope not.
I
mean, I think it's like this universe is ripe for spin-off content because of how vivid it is.
Oh yeah.
You can do so much. And someone brought up in the chat streams ago, not in this particular chat, but I guess there is a novella that takes place like on like all the different worlds or something like that. Like there is writing that explores the world that the show exists in. But as far as it like being a super show, I think this is interesting. So I was in a stream with Vigilante Williamson the other day, and Just Another Red Shirt came on. And that guy's awesome. Hell, Just Another Red Shirt. He's got an amazing voice too, by the way.
He does.
But he's he's Just Another Red Shirt. Obviously, he's a huge science fiction fan. He's a big Star Trek guy. And he hadn't, he'd listen to us talk about it, listen to Gary talk about it, and he came in the chat and he was like, hey, I got a question for you. I watched that first episode and I was like, I don't know. I don't get this. I don't know. And I'm like, I had the same experience. I walked him through like how I got to episode 4 and the whole show exploded for me. I think, unfortunately, that pilot episode, while I do think now in retrospect it's good, if you haven't seen any of it, it does kind of work against the show a little bit because it's a tough nut to crack.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I started and stopped watching. It took until my 4th go.
Yeah, you said that. That's right.
It was my 4th attempt, and it was because guys like you and Gary were telling me just how good it was. It's like, and I trust your guys' taste, and it's like, okay, if these guys are saying that this show is unreal, I need to give it my full attention and at least get through the first season. I got to that 4th episode and I could not stop.
Right. That was the moment I was hooked. And you know what? Red Shirt, same thing. Yeah, I told him, I was like, dude, just get through that 4th episode when the Roci is busting out off the Donager and those miniguns are going. And you're just like, whoa, this is so cool. And it just goes from there. They go to Tycho and the whole story just explodes. I think, yeah, it's such an effective prelude and such a faithful adaptation to the novels. It almost works against the show, which is amazing. Like they almost did too good of a job, which is hilarious.
Yeah. They are actually improving on the novels in this show. I don't know that it needed that much. Apparently, if you talk to Gary, it will need it after we get past Nemesis games here. But they're taking through lines and plots and improving them as they work them into this ongoing story, and that is speaking well for the actual idea of the creation of this art. The idea that they care so much about it. I mean, you've got the writers there. They are producing. They are putting into it, and they are their own work is not a pearl of great price to them. It's not something that they care so much they're not willing to change it to make it better.
Yeah, they have humility, and it shows. And they did that with a few storylines. I thought really improved the tenor of the show. And I was like, wow. Like I went back and read the books. I was like, they did. They handled that better in the show. Like it wasn't precious to them the way it went down. They're like, well, this would be more cinematic. This would be more interesting. I think, yeah. I mean, those guys are fucking geniuses. I mean, like the trifecta of Ty, Frank, Naren Shankar, and I always forget the other author's name, but those 3 guys, like it's like this
Dan Abrams.
Yeah, that's it. And it's just the most consistent show on TV. Like, I think though we have to, as fans, we have to just hand walk people through the experience, to get them into it. Be like, give them like a good push. Like I know it's this show you've never heard of and it's sci-fi and this, that, and the other, but just get through episode 4. If that happens and you're still not into it, okay, the show's not for you. But you got to give them like a little nudge. I think maybe it's like our responsibility as fans. I mean, I know I've always been on a one-man campaign to get people into the Expanse, and hey, I've pulled a few in.
And thank you.
You're welcome, brother. You're welcome. Lightam. It's a rare opportunity for authors of the books to adapt it for video. It's unheard of.
Good point.
It never happened.
Very uncommon.
Very, very rare.
It's very rare.
They'll pen the screenplay, but they'll take the screenplay from the guy and they'll change it, and the producers will get involved. It's never like the fact that they are in the writer's room and they write the scripts is unheard of. It's completely unprecedented, and you can see why it's so valuable because it preserves the quality, it preserves the vision, it allows for flexibility where it's needed, which is, I think, because sometimes they'll break stories because it needs to fit into a film or a TV show, and you're like, oh, what'd you do? Oh no, and it's like they just had to fit a cinematic arc. You're like, oh, you ruined it, like in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where Arthur Dent saves the fucking day. God, I couldn't believe I watched that.
Yeah,
Elvis. I have my entire life had this opinion about you've got to keep your books, especially the books that you care so much about. You've got to keep them separate from the adaptation. You've got to keep them separate from the movie because they are so much 2 different animals. That if you actually want everything that you loved about your book to be in the show, it's not going to be there. Go ahead, Jake, about.
Yeah, I'll just say real quick, and sorry, I missed your question there earlier, Eric. Hope you're still here to hear the answer, but they absolutely are ripe for spinoffs, and they could bring things. They could bring a lot of stuff in if they really went after it. Hope you were still here to hear that. So But yeah, no, I could definitely see spinoffs happening here, man.
Love you, Eric K. Good to see you, buddy.
Dude, you are the master wrench, Eric K.
Yes, he is. Here's an interesting thing. Brusnajo says, I like to give people progressing milestones. Pilot, season 1, ep 4, end of season 1, season 2, ep 5, end of season 2. And if they make it to season 3, they're never quitting. That's hilarious. See, we all kind of understand that there is like a path to this, you know, and it does need to be walked with a little. You do need to be focused on your path. You can't just casually like enter into this journey. You do need to be prepared. But once you do, I mean, I only know of one person who completed season 1 and didn't finish it. And that's my buddy Jared. But he's a filmmaker. He's got such good taste. It's so weird. But he doesn't like noir. Doesn't like detective noir. So it just didn't appeal to him.
Miller,
he didn't like Miller
in his craw.
He doesn't like that kind of story. It's not Miller. It's just he doesn't like that.
Well, I mean, you know, I guess it is what it is, right? And
It is what it is.
Elvis makes a good comment here, and it's so true.
I haven't read the books, but I can hear book readers not complaining about the TV version. That's yes. They love it.
That one right there, Matt, that's an impressive feat, because almost every time you want to say never, you get to have the author interact with the production of the adaptation. You also almost never hear fans of the book speaking kindly about the adaptation. They almost always speak with detriment, like, I'm missing this part. Where is this part that I had in my book? This was one of the things that I always loved about it. Why didn't they put that in the show?
Dude, you should see the comment section on my videos of The Stand. You're describing it. You know,
yeah, I mean,
we can talk further about that, but that's not here. But not here.
I felt like that as a reader of a book, and then I like the Altered Carbon show. Like, it's a really great visual adaptation, but a lot of things they changed. And I was like, but I wanted that. Why did you get rid of that? Wait, who is this? Wait, what have you done? Like those things, it's when you break the back of the story that I think people really can't forgive it. It's like you changed the nature of the story in the book. It's like, why? I'll never understand why you would do that to fans. It makes no sense. And I guess, I don't know, because I understand that in Hollywood, like when it comes to novelists and screenwriters and producers, it gets contentious because novelists are really protective. They're like, no, don't hurt my baby. And it's like, but sometimes they don't see that like you do need to fit it into like 90 minutes or 2 hours or whatever. Like it is hard. And then like producers have their ambitions and they have their needs and why the story needs to go this way and stuff like that. So I guess I don't know, but I've also heard disasters where they've included the novelist in the creative process and they're tyrants. They won't give a single point. They won't bend. They won't, I don't know. Whatever the magic, the alchemy that made this show work as well as it did, I'm grateful for it.
I got to give credit to Naren Shankar. Between him and the authors, they've got some kind of chemistry, and there's nothing about it that doesn't work.
No. I mean, we picked apart everything that didn't work, and they were minor things.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was what kept it from getting a 10 out of 10 instead of a 9 out of 10. I mean, that's a quibble. You know?
They're essentially quibbles because all they do is just kind of affect your immersion. They don't affect the logical progression of the story. You're just kind of like little things. You're like,
Remember, this whole thing is perception. It's just like the first time you saw that, Matt. The first time you saw the scene with Amos and Clarissa comes in and takes the guy. This is all about perception of what you see, and sometimes you perceive a thing and you latch onto it. It's our way of saying, this is what I see, this is what I believe, and this is what I'm sticking with. But there is so much well done in this, or at least I believe in this well done, because one of the things I will always have an issue with is when people like our friends in production, Mahler and his crew, come in and they hate the Expanse for the various reasons that the importance of them, of everything being, of the writing being as tight as possible. No issues with it that make you think that something's wrong.
But that's what I don't understand, why the EFAP guys don't like it, because this is a perfect example of the writing being airtight.
There are a few issues that they have valid gripes about, but the thing is that I also think that there are many things that have shut them out, and this show has improved over time. I couldn't validate that with them because we're not in their groups, but they put a high score on so many things that in the first few seasons they weren't hitting so much on. I mean, we get drawn in by certain emotions, by certain action scenes, by certain events that carry out, and they fulfill what you're looking for in a show. That it isn't what they're looking for as much as they're looking for consistency and logic and writing that is spot on. There's a lot of things. Remember, you're from the realm of movie and television production. This is a group effort, so a whole bunch of cooks are in the kitchen. They can improve this. They can make this better, but they can also add a little bit of inconsistency. They can also add a little bit of issue.
Sorry, it's funny. I'm still focused on this whole EFAP thing, but I'm looking at. I guess they talked about the Expanse back in June of 2019. They were still pretty big back then, but not as big as they are now. But yeah, no, I really want to get into what they think, because I've tried to be, with my coverage of it, I've tried to be as objective as possible when it came to logical story continuity. I gave it because I understand, I subjectively love it. I love it because of I love it. I've been in it, but I like this genre. I like the visual style. I like the acting. I like a lot of things about it that I subjectively enjoy. But objectively, when it came to story logic, I was trying to crack it, and it doesn't crack. It's a really tight, very tight story, and that's why I'm I don't get what the guys in EFAP don't see in that show. I don't understand. It's okay, but by your litmus test, your standards, you should love this. You should at least respect it. I don't know. I find that to be bizarre.
I've missed some of the discussions, or at least I did not delve deep into the discussions that they had. There were a few issues that they brought up, and I said, okay, that argument is fair. But one thing I will say is that I know that back when Wolf was still with them, he got deep into the books, really liked the books, and he had some of the most polarized opinions of the adaptation, which is usually, remember, it's usually something they take away. They want to separate the adaptation, which is much they have hit on Gary for his appreciation of the adaptation of comic books, right? Gary is attached to comic books, so he will be hard on the adaptation and say it's got to be close to the original material. Sure. When they're saying, well, it should just be a well-written adaptation of the original material, and that will be satisfactory. Well, yeah. Wolf was hard on the adaptation because he thought the books were a more solid measure of the quality of the material. And without going too much more deep into that, I'm wondering if that had played into it, because they definitely got turned off by the show early. And maybe they didn't see what we saw in episode 4.
I don't know.
What we saw in the close of the season.
They seem to have similar taste to me and us. They obsess over things that I obsess over or I'm focused on. I mean, they take it way further than me, but it's still even the coolness factor didn't seem to interest them. You didn't think the Roci leaving for 5 miniguns going, blowing shit up was cool. Really? That's just weird to me. I don't know how, you can not like the things around it, or you can find the show challenging, but objectively, isn't that fucking cool? That's cool.
It is, man. And one of the big strengths they've got is, and Light of Man was talking about this in the chat, was what we see with Amos and Clarissa in this episode. And yeah, the Amos that we're getting now is not the same Amos that we saw back when the Tachi blasted out of the Donager.
Great point.
Right. This is a character who has developed, and he has changed, and he's gone through a really expansive arc over the course of the 5 seasons. Now, is the guy that blasted out of there in that episode 4 coming out of the Donager, is he still there? Yeah, and we saw that today, right? Yeah. But we also saw how much he's changed with his whole, Holden would never have approved of that thing.
Yeah.
So, if what we're looking for is in-depth character development, believable character arcs, a universe with rules that are consistent, and something that you don't have to suspend too much disbelief to be a part of, I mean, I don't see how you're missing any of that with this show, because that's all here. And you've got characters that we care about. You've got villains that you love because they're so fucking villainous, which is what they should be. It's like,
and it's like what you're saying, like we're speaking to, it's like the characters evolve while remaining themselves, which is incredible. Like, that's like real human development. Like, that's remarkable to depict. And I forgot who was saying about who said it in the chat earlier, but it was something that like someone said how much Amos could like devolve, but you're like, the growth that he's had gives him that indicator that, oh yeah, I got to get back to like where I'm not going to go back to the animal that I've been. And that's fascinating. Like, this whole thing about him and Clarissa planning that murder, it's like, I don't even think he knew he was going to murder him. He just saw, we need the stuff. He's in the way of the stuff. And that was it. And it's like, damn, dude, like, that's some heavy stuff right there. That's some heavy stuff right there. And like, the most remarkable part is him just like looking off into space, just being like, yeah, I need my crew. Like, that was a great moment. Like, whoa.
Oh, yeah.
Amos is unnoticeably getting his people skills, but compared to the season 1, he's developed greatly. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and making the characters real people is critical. Makes the show really appealing. Yeah, like, it has to have some kind of touchstones into logic and people behaving as if they would, making like logical decisions. I mean, there's nothing more frustrating than watching a show. Like, I watched this show, or this movie that a buddy recommended for me. Oh crap, I gotta try to figure out what it was called, but it was the concept was there was like these caves like in Texas with these time like distortion portals, and the people, you'd walk into them and then you'd walk back out into Earth, and like 15 years had passed because time was moving really slow in these time distortion portals. Well, this group of kids gets stuck in them, and like years and years and years are going by outside, and like, the whole face of Earth changes, and people, this is just, I mean, it's a really interesting concept, but the characters, the way they behaved, their lack of logic was enraging. I was screaming at the screen while it was going on. I was like, what are you doing? Why are you making that choice? That makes no sense. Like, when your characters are behaving so stupidly and so inanely, it's like, you're like, like, it drives you fucking crazy. And
it sounds like they weren't obeying the rules to survive a horror movie to me.
You're just like, ugh. But when you get a show like this where they all make, like, I love also about this show too is like when a character makes a choice that's like what seems to be the right thing to do, the noble thing to do, often that'll blow up right in their face, just like real life. I love shit like that. It's I don't know, I could praise this show to the end of time. Do you guys have anything else like that really stuck out about this episode, or anything in particular you wanted to mention?
Well, we did finally get to see the Roci fly out of Tycho Station.
Great fucking.
And yeah, and we hadn't brought that up yet. We did finally get the Roci heading into space.
Yes, we did.
And everybody seems to be angling to reunite again now.
Yeah.
Which is good. because we need that.
We need it. And you know what? There's something I wanted to point out on the Roci. I noticed it when it was just flying before, like when I was looking at it. It looks like there's some new fun features on the Roci. Now, Draco, you would know this. Does the Roci have a railgun, or has it in the past?
Roci has never had a heavy gun on it. It's only had the proper name of them, but essentially what you refer to as the miniguns. It's got several minigun emplacements. One of the only re-riggings that I've seen on it was when they went from season 3 to season 4, and they made the landfall girdle around the bottom so that it could actually land on a planet.
Right. Maybe that's what I'm saying. Okay.
Yeah, you see a little ring just close to the back. You see a ring. It's got like 4 legs or something on it. That's its landfall rig.
Landfall. I like that landfall girdle. Yeah. Okay. Maybe that's what I was looking at, because I thought. Elvis says it had a light railgun in season 4.
That one's already been there.
I thought I saw that when it was in this one sequence. Like, all right, I'll share this still frame with all y'all lovely people. This is okay. Buzz Nacho, who is very knowledgeable. The Roci got a railgun attached at the beginning of season 4. Use it to blow up a moon as a makeshift thruster when the reactor was out of Illis. Right.
I remember that scene now. Thank you for bringing that up, Buzz. Thank you for bringing that up, Elvis.
Buzz Nacho doesn't miss a beat, dude. Doesn't miss a beat, man. This guy is sharp when it comes.
Yeah, apparently I was somewhat asleep binging.
I forgot all
about that. I was asleep binging the previous season.
I forgot all about it too. But here's what. So is this the landing girdle then? Like you see on the back of the ship, there's like these little. Is that what that is?
You follow that all the way around the ship.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a landing girdle. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Or whatever you might want to call it. I refer to it as the girdle because it fits around the bottom, the back half of the ship. But I
think it's a great term.
It enables landfall.
Yeah, but when they started this episode, the camera like twisted over like the Roci, and it had like what looked like a big railgun. I was like, did the Roci always have a railgun? But thank you, Buzz Nacho. Thank you,
Elvis and Buzz.
Yeah, man.
I think they were mainly shooting to give us the kind of the full exterior shot of the refitted Roci. I think that was kind of the main, and it worked. I loved it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I love it. I love the Roci. The Millennium Falcon's always going to be my favorite, but it's like, that's also been kind of bastardized and like hoard out. You know what I mean? But that's definitely a close second is the Roci. All right. Well, I guess that's going to do it for this evening's stream. I think we covered everything inside out, man. Thank you, chat, for hanging out with us so much. You guys, we started off this stream with 15, 16, and you guys maintain that number pretty much all the way through. So thank you so much for hanging out with us. It's awesome. I guess, Jake, would you like to plug your channel before we boogie on?
Yeah, you bet, man. You can find me, just search Jake D on YouTube, just like you see it spelled right there. I do, also cover the Expanse. Many of the people in the chat tonight were on the live stream that we did last week with this same crew over on my channel. And we've got, I am covering the Stand right now as well, and I intend to fully chronicle its demise because it's a god-awful adaptation, unlike this show. This is one of the best adaptations I've ever seen in my entire life, and it is the best show on television right now, and perhaps the greatest science fiction show ever made, and that is saying something. We also regularly have both Matt and Draco as guests on my Sunday evening show, Howling About Entertainment, every Sunday at 5:15 Central Time.
Hear, hear. Yeah, I was going to point that out. Often, we are often guests, and Jake's got a great channel. Lots of interesting stuff going on there, and you can catch me there, talk about the Expanse, talk about all kinds of stuff. Draco Argentis, would you like to sign off, the lovely people?
Thank you very much. It's wonderful sharing the stream with these two excellent streamers. That if you haven't already subbed to Matt and Jake D, please sub to these guys because they are making some excellent content. I'm not doing as much, but I am doing promotional videos, little teasers that for the Expanse, for sort of give you a little bit of flavor of the episode of the week to give you more reasons to watch it. Maybe come up with something a little bit later than that. But if you would sub, I would appreciate a sub. But definitely these guys, Matt and Jake D, are excellent content creators. And thank you everybody in the chat for joining too, keeping us on point, keeping us real, and help make the chat that much more interesting.
Hear, hear. Yeah, thank you guys so much for hanging out. This has probably been the coolest part about doing this channel, is sharing like this passionate fandom of something that I love as much as The Expanse. And you guys like hanging out, like throwing details at me and correcting me on stuff and offering your opinions. I mean, it just makes it that much more enjoyable, and it's so much more fun to do when you guys are here. So I really appreciate you guys hanging out. Please come by every single time and like the video if you haven't yet. And I'll check you all in the next one. Have a good night, guys.
Have a good evening, everybody.